Daerah kumuh merupakan salah satu masalah lingkungan yang dihadapi banyak negara di dunia, termasuk Indonesia. Tata kota yang buruk, masalah sanitasi, dan pertumbuhan jumlah penduduk yang terus meningkat membuat
Why
banyak
poverty never get away from this country,
menjadi padat dan
despite of economy booming. For the last 2 decades,
menimbulkan masalah lain.
Indonesia have reached economy growth for 6 to 7% each year, but why the poverty never gone? With GDP top 20 in global ranking, or the biggest in Southeast Asia. Indonesia considered as the most richest and most powerful country in Southeast Asia. But if you come to Jakarta, Indonesia capital city, then you will find many poor people here on the street. Not just only in Jakarta you can see the poor people, but you can also find this poor everywhere across the country. With population over 270 million, Indonesia have 10% population, which is very poor. According to World Bank data, in 2022 Indonesia have poor population about 26 million and lower middle income class about 56 million. This is unacceptable. Since Indonesia have achieved big growth in economy from 1970 to 1998 and continue to growth until today. But what happened here is nobody can change this situation, including the government. In order to know exactly the problem of this country, we need to zoom in on the people. What are they do for their living? What is the main source of their income and how they live their life? Now let's take a closer look at the people life in this country.
That's because the family cannot live off on just one source of income. Since COVID-19 wreaked havoc on the economy, he doesn't get enough passengers to ferry them around the city center. The bulk of his regular customers have either been laid off or told to work from home.
Kalau untuk kayak seperti kami ojek online itu kan kita kita berjalan itu kan dari anak-anak sekolah, orang-orang kantor, orang-orang kerja gitu, yang setiap hari naik ojek. Nah, sedangkan mereka semua diliburin. Kita mau narik apa? Kita ada layanan GrabFood atau GoFood. Orang-orangnya aja udah susah cari uang, mereka lebih milih belanja di pasar, masak di rumah. Restoran semua sepi. Saya juga ayam geprek saya udah masuk online juga. 1 minggu itu 1 order. Itu pun yang order kawan saya.
Hisham lives with his wife and their 6-year-old boy in a rented room measuring 2.5 by 3 meters. His parents occupy a room next door. Debt collectors often come knocking at his door, demanding money that he still owes the bank after his garment business collapsed 2 years ago. He was recently forced to sell his television set to help repay the debt. On top of his monthly expenses running his grilled chicken business, he still has to pay his rent, electricity bills, as well as his son's education. He now has run out of things to sell to help cover his debts.
Kalau sampai misalnya motor yang saya jadiin buat kaki saya itu saya jadiin, saya nggak mungkin kan saya dari sini ke tempat jualan saya jalan kaki kan nggak mungkin. Kalau harus ngongkos pakai bajai atau apa itu kan biayanya lebih mahal aja. Ya bisa dikatakan sih.
To cover 20 million poor Indonesians during the pandemic, social protection, financial support as well as credit assistance have also been extended to state-owned firms and small private enterprises. But are the measures sufficient to deal with the impact of the major public health catastrophe? Indonesia's Finance Minister Sri Mulyani Indrawati says that the government has been doing what it can to alleviate the sufferings of ordinary Indonesians.
First, this year, because of this COVID situation, which is affecting both the revenue as well as the spending, we are widening our deficit, which is traditionally or legally, we are only allowed to have a maximum 3% of GDP. With the special law, which is passed and agreed by the parliament, we are allowed to have more than 3% of GDP. And this year, we are expecting to have 6.3% deficit, and that is to cover almost 700 trillion additional spending for the COVID-related, including for the economic recovery, as I explained earlier. Now, for this, because of the very steep increase on the deficit, we have to discuss on how we are going to finance.
So the government responded swiftly with a number of measures, with their relief measures, which include direct cash transfers.
Indonesia is known as a country that exports mining materials, such as coal mines, gold mines, bauxite mines, nickel mines, tin mines, aluminum mines, copper mines, and is the largest palm oil producer in the world. But why poverty still exists? To see this, let's go back to 1998, when the second president Indonesia Suharto was stepped down because of riot. Second President Indonesia Suharto had been rules Indonesia for 32 years, and he is the longest president ever in Indonesia history. The second President Suharto have 3 sons and 3 daughters, all of them are businessmen at the time. According to Forbes, Suharto have 32 billion United States dollars net worth. He is the richest president in Indonesia history amongst the others. His son and daughters own many big company in Indonesia that you can't count how much money they have. Nobody know how much money does his son and daughter have. But people in Indonesia can do nothing about this. Even the Chinese often get bullied by him in his regime. When the riot happened in 1998, many Chinese people become victim. They get raped, robbed and looted and killed. 20 years after, a new president comes. His name is Joko Widodo. He promised to bring prosperity and fix the Indonesian life. Many people believe Joko Widodo will bring change to this country. But after 10 years of his presidency, we still have the same problem. Even worse, we have new problem. Indonesia have too many corruption by the official. According to Overpost Global,
4 ministers in the Jokowi era was found guilty of corruption, namely former Minister of Youth and Sports Affairs, Imam Nahrawi, former Minister of Maritime Affairs and Fisheries, Edi Prabowo, former Minister of Social Affairs, Idrus Marham, and the most recent former Minister of Social Affairs, Juliari Batubara. The Anti-Corruption Commission accused Juliari Batubara of receiving at least $1.6 million from suppliers related to the government's COVID-19 aid distribution. And all in all, 12 ministers were found guilty of corruption since the beginning of the Reformation era. Additionally, the high cost of regional elections has entangled many regional heads in corruption. 429 regional heads, including governors and mayors, have been arrested because of corruption since 2005. And corruption also occurred in the highest order of institutions and supposedly the most noble. A Supreme Court judge and the Chief of Justice of Indonesia's Constitutional Court. Remember that all of this are only the ones that were exposed. Just how many out there were left unexposed? And let me highlight 3 other specific cases that have shocked the nation. And these are not corruption cases per se, but they have shaken the country and do not help the public's perception of the government or public officials. The first is a case that involved a general police named Ferdy Sambo. This was a high-profile case since it involved a high-ranking police officer that is supposed to showcase exemplary tenacity in fighting corruption. The case started with a reported gunfight on the 8th of July 2022 in Ferdy Sambo's house that caused one of his men, Brigadier Joshua Huta Barat, to lose his life. Ferdy Sambo accused Brigadier Joshua of sexual harassment towards his wife, Putri Chandrawati, which led to the gunfight with his other man, Barada Eliezer. But after months of investigations, it turned out that the gunfight was only a scenario plotted by Ferdy Sambo and there was no proof of the alleged sexual harassment. It was a public display of how Ferdy Sambo, a 2-star general, used power and influence to craft a falsified story to create this narration that he is the innocent party. He asked men to remove CCTV footage. He ordered men to provide false version of the events surrounding the murder involving 97 police officers from a range of ranks, including other police generals. He even has men fly to Brigadier Joshua's family using a private jet. On the 13th of February 2023, Sambo was found guilty of murdering Brigadier Joshua and was sentenced to death while his wife was sentenced to 20 years as the instigator of the murder. The real reason of the murder remains a mystery, even though there are plenty of wild speculations, including those voiced out by Brigadier Joshua's lawyer, who claimed it involved an affair and an illegal business. The second case is the Indosuria fraud, the biggest fraud in Indonesia's history, which caused a $7 billion loss to 23,000 customers. Indosuria is a microfinance institution that provides loans to its members, commonly referred to as KSP. Customers saved money in KSP Indosuria because they offered interest rates of 8 to 11%, higher than the typical bank rate of no more than 4%. Customers trust KSP Indosuria because they have been operating for more than 10 years and have office buildings, including in Thamrin, a prestigious stretch of road known for high-end malls, Grand Indonesia and Plaza Indonesia, as well as Grand Hyatt and Kempinski Hotel. The initial problem was highlighted in 2020 when Indosuria could not liquidate savings and investments. Henry Surya, the founder of KSP Indosuria, was taken into custody, and after almost 3 years, the judges in the West Jakarta District Court declared that Henry was proven to fail to repay his customers. Still, they argued that it was a civil case and accordingly acquitted him of criminal charges, and he was set free. This caused public outrage, including Minister of Political, Legal and Security Affairs Mahfud MD, who expressed his disappointment due to the criminal act of money laundering and vowed to work and fight to ensure Indosuria does not continue its fraud and corruption. In recent developments, Henry Surya has again become a suspect for the second time. The uncertainty and frustration continue for the customers who simply want their money back. The third case is the ongoing investigation on the possibility of money laundering worth $23.5 billion. This case was unraveled in the most dramatic fashion. It started with a video of a young adult, Mario Dandi, who ruthlessly beat up 17-year-old David Ozora. This is just the crime scene reconstruction, but Indonesians witnessed the cruel act of an entitled Mario kicking David in the head and then pridefully celebrating a la Ronaldo from an uncensored video that was...
Okay, now back to poverty. Why this thing never get resolved by government? Are they too busy or they don't have money to help this poor people? Or there is other thing? I don't know, but I want you to see this short video.
Finally, I'm meeting the forestry minister. I have a lot of questions. What's blocking the effort to save that peat forest?
We were in Tesanilo National Park.
Okay.
It's not funny.
Yeah.
It's not funny. Only 18% of it remains. We saw it. There are new roads, new illegal roads. Forests cut, trees laying on the ground, burnt where they fell. It's devastating. It's heartbreaking to see it. You saw it. You pledged a resolution. What have you done?
Saya baru lihat terkaget. Kami tiap hari untuk mencoba menyelesaikan persoalan. Kami baru mengalami apa yang disebut demokrasi.
Sir, they didn't drop out of the sky on this property. They came there over a period of time, and there was plenty of time to stop the behavior, stop the activity.
Tadi saya sudah jelaskan, ini bukan Amerika, memang berbeda. Kami baru mengalami apa yang disebut dengan reformasi. Ya, baru ini. Sekarang orang baru bebas. Baru bebas kadang-kadang kami memang surplus, apa yang disebut dengan surplus demokrasi. Oleh karena itu kami sekarang buat program untuk mencoba memindahkan mereka, mencari lahan pengganti.
I understand. You're willing to lose the battle. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I see all of this wealth, but it's at the top of the heap. Down at the bottom of the heap, sir, there's inequity, there's illegality, and there's corruption. Thank you for your time.
Sama-sama, makasih.
No wonder poverty ever gone from Indonesia.
Better prepared to tackle the challenge this time round. May 19